Everyone saw Mark Salling as Puck, the charming troublemaker with a guitar, the guy who made millions of teenage girls scream. But behind closed doors, something was very wrong. In 2011, a woman accused him of assault. In 2015, police found 50,000 disturbing images on his computer. Some involved children, as young as 3. He was weeks away from prison when they found him dead. His family called him gentle. They called him creative. But years later, they finally admitted something else. Something people had suspected since he was a child. The real story starts in a small Dallas home. Mark Wayne Salling was born on August 17, 1982 in Dallas, Texas. He grew up in Lake Highlands inside a small 2-bedroom house that cost around $120,000 back then. His father, John Robert Salling Jr., worked as an accountant and earned about $45,000 a year during the 1980s. His mother, Condi Sue Wary, worked as a school secretary and brought home around $28,000. It was a quiet house on the outside, but inside the rules were tight and strict. Mark was the younger of 2 sons. His parents believed strongly in their faith and wanted to keep their children away from what they called worldly influence. Because of that, they pulled him out of public school when he was only 5 years old. From age 5 to 10, he was taught at home. Each day came with long hours of reading, prayers, and memorizing Bible verses. Some weeks he had to learn 50 verses. Rock music was banned completely because his parents believed it was dangerous. But curiosity has a way of finding small cracks. Mark once hid a little Walkman and secretly listened to Led Zeppelin when no one was around. It felt like a small rebellion in a house where even television was limited to 1 hour a week. Every dinner ended the same way, with a long prayer that could stretch for 15 minutes. His older brother followed the rules and rarely got in trouble. Mark was different. He pushed back often, and the tension showed early. One time when he was 8, he smashed a family Bible after being grounded for stealing a candy bar that cost only 25 cents. Punishments in the house were serious. His father used a leather belt and sometimes gave 10 to 15 lashes for lying or disobedience. During those moments, Mark would shout back through tears and anger that one day they would regret it. On Sundays, his grandparents often visited. His grandfather, John Robert Salling, had lost a leg during World War II in Normandy and told stories about the war. To outsiders, the family looked like the picture of an all-American home, but Mark was already living 2 lives. When Mark turned 10, his parents finally sent him back to school. From 1992 to 1997, he attended Christian schools in Dallas, including Providence Christian School and later Our Redeemer Lutheran. The tuition alone cost his parents over $4,000 each year. The schools followed strict rules. Girls were not allowed to wear pants. Students had chapel several times every week. The discipline inside the classroom could be harsh. Students who talked too much sometimes had to kneel on rice for 20 minutes. Records from one year show Mark received that punishment 17 different times for talking back. Once, after failing a surprise quiz about the book of Genesis, he shouted that Jesus must hate rules. Still, something new was growing during those years. Music slowly found its way into his life, even though it was discouraged at school. When he was 11, he began experimenting with piano. A janitor at the school showed him a few notes in exchange for candy bars. Mark started practicing late at night in the basement. He had no formal lessons because the family could not afford $30 an hour for a teacher, so he taught himself. During recess, he would pretend to play guitar and mimic the riffs from songs like Enter Sandman by Metallica. Teachers called it disruptive. Detentions followed again and again. One moment became famous among students. During an Easter play in 1996, he played a shepherd in the choir. In the middle of Amazing Grace, he suddenly broke into a rock-style solo with growling sounds. The principal was furious and called his parents immediately. They were forced to donate $100 to the school after the incident. By the time Mark was 13, his rebellious streak was stronger than ever. He once stole communion wine during church and ended up getting sick later that night. His parents grounded him for 3 months. But even with all that pressure, he kept writing songs. By the time he finished those early school years, he had written 14 small songs of his own. Then came another attempt by his parents to straighten his path. In the summer of 1998, they sent him to Culver Military Academy in Indiana. The program lasted 8 weeks and cost about $7,500. They hoped discipline would shape him into the future accountant his father imagined. It lasted only 4 weeks. Mark clashed with the strict drills and the early 5 in the morning wake-up calls. The final moment came when he punched a drill instructor after getting punished for a uniform mistake. His father had to wire $2,000 to settle the situation and bring him home. Back in Dallas, he returned to Lake Highlands High School and joined the wrestling team. From 1999 to 2001, he competed in the 167-pound class and built a strong record. At 17, he began sneaking into Dallas bars to perform small shows even though he was underage. Places like Poor David's Pub gave him $40 a night to sing rock songs and play guitar. School talent shows loved him though. One night in 2000, he played the long solo from Stairway to Heaven during the homecoming show, and the crowd of 800 students erupted with cheers. His parents still pushed the accounting path. Mark had already made his choice. After finishing high school in June 2001, he packed his things, gathered about $1,200 from his bar gigs, and drove west toward California. He was 18 years old and chasing something no one in his family really believed in. Los Angeles greeted him with bright lights and hard reality. Mark enrolled in the Los Angeles Music Academy in Pasadena, where he studied guitar, piano, bass, and drums. Fame did not arrive quickly. Instead, he spent long days teaching private guitar lessons to beginners. Each hour brought around $30 to $50, and most of that money disappeared into rent for a small Pasadena apartment that cost $800 a month. By 2003, he had around 20 students every week. In the evenings, he recorded demos inside a tiny garage studio with borrowed equipment. Small acting work appeared now and then. In 2006, he landed a role in a low-budget horror film called The Graveyard and earned about $5,000. On February 8, 2008, he released his first album under the name Jericho. The album was called Smoke Signals, and he produced almost every part of it himself. The album had 11 songs and told stories about heartbreak and addiction. Sadly, almost no one heard it. It did not appear on any major charts, and fewer than 500 copies sold that year. So he returned to the same routine. More guitar lessons, more open mic nights, more small shows in dim clubs where 20 or 30 people listened. Sometimes he earned only $50 for the entire night. Between 2002 and 2008, he played over 100 small shows around Los Angeles, yet the dream kept pulling him forward. Then something finally shifted. In 2008, he auditioned for a new television series called Glee. At that moment, he was 26 years old, but he told producers he was 19 because he believed the younger age would help him land a role as a high school character. During auditions, he arrived with a sharp mohawk haircut that made him stand out among hundreds of actors. When creator Ryan Murphy met him during callbacks, he noticed the age lie, but also saw something real in Mark's rough energy. That edge became the character Noah Puckerman. When Glee premiered on September 16, 2009, audiences met Puck as a cocky football player who bullied the Glee Club. But the character soon revealed another side. In one episode, he picked up a guitar and sang Sweet Caroline. The moment surprised viewers, and the song quickly climbed music charts. Suddenly, Mark Salling was no longer the struggling musician eating ramen noodles in Pasadena. He was part of one of the biggest television shows of the time. During the peak years of Glee, Mark Salling's character Noah Puckerman slowly became one of the most talked-about faces on the show. One of the earliest moments that pushed Puck into the center of attention came on September 16, 2009. In Season 1, Episode 3, titled Acapellas, Puck stepped forward and performed Billy Joel's song Only the Good Die Young. The scene pulled in about 6.69 million viewers in the United States. Fans loved it instantly. The buzz around the show was already huge. Mark Salling was still trying to prove himself. During auditions, he had even lied about his age, claiming he was 19 when he was actually 27. While fans were cheering for Puck on screen, the crew noticed something different off-screen. Mark Salling was quiet and often shy when cameras were not rolling. Years later, that early performance began to feel eerie for many fans. The song title itself, Only the Good Die Young, stayed in people's minds after Mark Salling died by suicide on January 30, 2018 at the age of 35, just weeks after pleading guilty to charges connected to child exploitation images. As Glee moved into its second season, the show was at its absolute peak. One moment that stood out came in Season 2, Episode 11, titled The Sue Sylvester Shuffle, which aired on November 30, 2000. Many episodes around that time were pulling more than 11 million viewers. At the center of the story was Quinn's pregnancy. Puck's role as the father created tension and heartbreak on screen. During the Glee live tour in 2011, Mark Salling's performance of fat-bottomed girls became one of the loudest moments of the entire show. By 2011, Mark Salling was experiencing the height of fame. That year he received a Teen Choice Award nomination for Choice TV Male Scene Stealer. The nomination came from an episode titled The Sexy, which aired on October 4, 2011. In the episode, Puck becomes involved with his teacher Shelby, performing Van Halen's Hot for Teacher during the storyline. During those same years, the cast was also traveling across the world for the Glee live tour. From May through early July of 2011, the cast performed 41 shows across the United States, Canada, England, and Ireland. Mark Salling often stepped forward shirtless with his guitar, leading the crowd through loud rock covers. Fans screamed every night. When Glee reached its 4th season in September 2012, the character of Puck was starting to change. The show itself was beginning to slow down by then. Ratings had started to dip from the huge numbers of earlier seasons. In total, Mark Salling appeared in 81 episodes of the series. Away from the show, he was also chasing a different dream. During the middle of filming Season 2, he quietly worked on his own music project. On October 25, 2010, he released an album called Pipe Dreams. He recorded all 12 songs himself in a home studio in Shadow Hills, Los Angeles. The album did not become a huge commercial hit, but it still reached the Billboard charts. The image many people had of Mark Salling came from Glee. On the show, he played the rebellious bad boy Puck. For years, that was the version of him most fans believed in. Yet away from the cameras, a very different story was quietly building. The first major crack appeared in March 2011. A woman named Roxanne Gorzella went to his home in Shadow Hills, Los Angeles. According to her, Salling had pushed for sex without protection even though she kept asking him to use a condom. She wanted answers. That visit did not go well. During the argument, Gorzella claimed Salling had been drinking. Voices rose. At some point, he allegedly shoved her hard during the fight. She fell and hit her head, which later required medical attention. Almost 2 years later, on January 28, 2013, Gorzella filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court. She accused him of sexual battery, assault, emotional distress, and negligence. The damages she asked for were more than $1 million. The fight continued in court until March 2015, when a judge ruled on the negligence claim. The decision ordered Salling's insurance company, State Farm, to pay Gorzella more than $2.7 million. Then tragedy entered the picture. On January 30, 2018, Salling died by suicide near Sunland, California. Just weeks later, on March 8, Gorzella filed another claim in court. This time she went after his estate, demanding the full unpaid $2.7 million. While that legal fight moved through the courts, another disturbing story surfaced. In 2012, a woman who had dated Salling reported that an encounter between them had turned violent. She later told police that she clearly said she could not go through with it and tried to pull away. According to her report, Salling ignored her refusal and forced himself on her anyway. In April 2016, she reported the alleged assault to the Los Angeles Police Department. Prosecutors reviewed the case carefully. 4 years had passed before the report was filed. There were no witnesses and no physical evidence left to examine. On October 28, 2016, the district attorney's office declined to file criminal charges. Around the same time, an even larger scandal was already unfolding. On December 29, 2015, police arrested Mark Salling at his home in Sunland after receiving a tip from a former girlfriend. Investigators obtained a search warrant and began examining his electronics. What they found shocked everyone involved. Authorities uncovered more than 50,000 images and videos containing child sexual abuse material stored on a laptop, hard drives, and USB drives. Some of the content involved children as young as 3 years old. Because of the massive scale of the material, federal investigators took control of the case. For nearly 2 years, the case moved through the court system while his career and reputation collapsed. Then in late 2017, he reached a plea agreement. Instead of fighting the charges in a trial, Salling admitted guilt to possession of illegal material involving a minor. The agreement meant he would likely face 4 to 7 years in prison. It also required strict conditions once he was released. He would have to register as a sex offender for life. The agreement was finalized in December 2017. Sentencing was scheduled for March 7, 2018. But that day never came. On the morning of January 30, 2018, Salling's mother noticed that both he and his car were gone. Hours later, his body was discovered near a path along the Los Angeles River in the Sunland Tujunga area. He had tied a rope to a tree and taken his own life. He was 35 years old. The timing stunned many people. Only 36 days remained before he would have stood in court to receive his sentence. An autopsy confirmed the cause of death as suicide by hanging. Toxicology results showed alcohol in his system but no drugs. As fans looked back at Glee, strange coincidences began to stand out. Lines spoken by Salling's character also took on eerie meaning. In one early episode, Puck jokes to another character that he might end up in jail or even dead someday. After the actor's real-life downfall, that line circulated widely across social media. Meanwhile, the legal consequences continued even after his death. Former partners and victims began filing claims against his estate. The estate itself turned out to be far smaller than many expected. Despite the money earned during Glee's successful run, reports suggested much of it had already disappeared through legal troubles and personal expenses. On the day his death became public, Salling's family released a statement through attorney Michael J. Proctor. They described him as a gentle and creative person who had been trying to atone for serious mistakes. Yet for many observers, the contrast was impossible to ignore. The cheerful performer who once sang and joked on television had been hiding a much darker reality.